Hey, Insta family. Here I am doing another one of these Insta Lives on a Saturday afternoon. So today I'm going to be talking to Mel Skinner from Mel Skinner Yoga, the author of the book Rest is Radical Rest. Sorry, I should get the name of the book right, Radical Rest. Um, and she is a restorative yoga teacher and also a yoga nidra teacher and trainer, and has written this amazing book. So I'm just going to invite her to come on with us now, if I can. So just one moment. And if you want to join us, and if you have any questions to ask Mel or myself, then please do. There she is. I'm going to invite her. Hi, Jamal. Oh, hi, Mel. You've joined. So you should be getting an invitation now to join, and you can accept that invitation. And here you are. Hi.
Yes. Hello. Oh, sorry. Let me get my phone set up. There we go. Great.
You're on the side though now.
Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm trying to balance my phone so I don't have to hold it the whole time. But I think that's fine.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And did you say this was your first Insta Live experience?
Yeah. I was telling someone this morning, I said, oh, I don't know how it works, but it's very easy as it turns out.
Yeah, I don't really know how it works either. And it's always a bit of a gamble. Every time I do this, I think next time I'll do this. And then by the time it gets to it, I've completely forgotten what that was. Yeah. But it always works out. So I wanted to say hello, and I wanted to say hello to the people that are joining. So your followers will get a notification that you're online. My followers will as well. So if you're watching this and you want to ask any questions to me or Mel or say hello, I'll try and wave at you all as you join. So I'm waving at a few of you now. And if you want to, ask us to put anything in the comments box, you're very welcome. And if you're watching it on the IGTV later, then you can still ask us questions because we'll address them afterwards. You can just tag Mel or tag me. You don't need to tag me actually. But anyway, you'll get through to us and we will answer your questions.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me introduce you to Mel. She is, well, I first met Mel because I went to her restorative yoga classes at Restorative Yoga, which were absolutely amazing, I have to say. Absolutely stunning classes where she would hold us so beautifully in all different positions, very knowledgeable about different bodies and how to kind of get the restorative experience, and really then we'd have a lovely yoga nidra at the end, and often there was chocolate, which you don't have to. You probably only had to give me chocolate. And you've also, so then I wanted to give that experience to my yoga students who are training to be yoga teachers. So I invite Mel to offer restorative yoga workshops on my yoga teacher training, and I thought it was very important for students training to be teachers have this experience, this kind of long hold, this reset, this nervous system reset. So you're an amazing part of the training. For my part, I'm really grateful that you're with us. And so I thought you could talk to us about what restorative yoga is. I've got a few questions, but you might just be able to just ramble on. Feel free. And every now and then I might ask you a few questions. But the first thing I would like to ask you is, why do you think that restorative yoga and yoga nidra, which you also teach and practice, why are they such important aspects of yoga that we need to be sharing with our students and our trainees?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think we know, all of us that have practiced yoga, that, all yoga is just fantastic. Whether you're doing more dynamic asana practice, whether you're doing the really restful stuff, whether you're chanting, whether you're meditating, like all of it has just got so much to offer us at different times. And I suppose the reason that I think restorative yoga and yoga nidra are so important is because many of us, myself very much included, can very easily live a life out of balance. I think our culture really celebrates busyness. We really celebrate kind of doing. We really often can get into a pattern of wearing things like, I'm so stressed and busy, becomes like a badge of honor, as if that shows how successful we are. And even something like yoga can become about striving, where we're like, I must stand on my head, or I must be able to touch my toes, and we get caught up in the future all the time, and we lose that joy of being into the present, which is, you know, what I think yoga has to offer us. And so for anyone that kind of falls into that busyness trap, which was certainly easier to do before COVID-19 came along, restorative yoga just teaches us to relax into being. It teaches us that we don't need to constantly be pushing and striving. It teaches us that it's okay to have support, because we are supporting the body, rather than trying to stretch. We're actually trying to soften. So we've got kind of a whole different approach to the way we're using our body. And we kind of learn to just accept ourselves for how we are. So we go, oh yeah, some days I'm really tired, some days my body's really sore and achy, and I want to do some yoga, but I don't quite have the energy for, you know, something that's a bit more athletic. And so restorative yoga really is an opportunity for us just to surrender into whatever we're feeling in that moment, not what the mind tells us yoga should be, not what how yoga should look, and therefore how we should be feeling. We can really drop back from all of that. So I think it's got, you know, fantastic benefits for switching us out of that busy mind, as well as, of course, all of the health benefits for the body. So we really, by softening tension in the muscles, we create space for the breath. So we don't really need to kind of do much to control the breath or change the breath in any way, but rather we open up the body to receive the breath. And so these two things, softening the muscles, breathing more fully and deeply, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's that part of the mind that is associated with when we're in a state of rest, when our digestive system's working well, when we're sleeping really well, when we're not on high alert, when we're not in constant state of adrenaline, and we're not constantly anxious. So, and again, I think the last couple of years, you know, a lot of us, you know, it has been stressful, it has been anxious. So any practices that we can have that can just help us shift back into, well, in this moment I'm actually safe, in this moment everything's okay, then it's just, you know, that's why it's called restorative yoga, because it really does kind of restore us. I often call it a reset button, you know, from the stresses and tension of the day. It's like, okay, you can just come back down and then start again.
And this is, you know, you touched in on this before, but it is quite, it is a radical practice, and that's why you've named your book. Now, I want to get this right. Is it called Radical Rest, or Rest is Radical? It's called Radical Rest.
Rest is radical.
All right, so I got it wrong twice. So it's Rest is Radical. And and can you explain why this is such a radical stance? And also just touching in what you said, you know, a lot of yoga is portrayed as this doing, this very active. And it's really important for us as yoga teachers to make space for that other kind of valuable and valid type of yoga, because I think, you know, in the last 10 years, as yoga's been bigger and bigger, it has been, you know, it's kind of been left behind, those kind of restorative practices. I mean, it's definitely coming very strong now. The practices of restorative yoga and yoga nidra are very, very much in the forefront now. But before, it was kind of, it was less respected even. You know, there's a lot of guilt about this, you know, bodily performance, and yoga was kind of tied in a little bit with the fitness culture and the doing and the busyness, like you said. So I think that these practices, they come when they're needed, you know, and like you said, now we need that medicine. But there's a really amazing kind of radical aspect to it, which is almost countercultural. So do you want to touch on that now and tell us about your book as well?
Yeah, sure. So I think the idea of rest being radical, I think it comes back to this notion that if we actually look at what drives us, if we look at what motivates us to keep pushing and to keep striving and to keep ourselves in a constant state of stress and busyness, then we can actually see that a lot of that is perhaps our own personal conditioning, but also the conditioning of the culture that we're in. We live in a very capitalist culture. We live in a very aspirational culture. We're kind of constantly being fed the message, you know, you just need to keep going, you know, keep shopping, keep working, keep spending, you know, don't ever let anything stop. And so when we're surrounded by all of those messages, which are all variations of consumerism, really, then it becomes very easy to think that we're the ones making those choices, that we're the ones saying, oh no, but I love being busy and, not sleeping properly and having stomach problems because I'm so stressed. I really enjoy it. I've really made a conscious choice. So when we do something like restorative yoga, and we actually can experience true relaxation, completely shift that mindset. I mean, a lot of the book was, inspired by own personal experience. I was certainly one of those people that was kind of on adrenaline most of my adult life, really. I kind of didn't really sit down for 5 minutes for years. And of course, yeah, I had a lot of good times, and I, did have a lot of fun doing things, but I was never in touch with myself. I never had any time for reflection. I never had any time to stop and go, why am I doing all of this? I had no idea what my own personal values were, because I was so caught up in doing everything that had been imposed on me. So if we think of yoga as an awakening, this idea of like a higher connection, a connection with your wholeness, you have to then, open up to the fact that you are already whole. Even if you don't have as much money as you want, or your body doesn't look how it wants, or your relationships aren't perfect, it's about but you're still whole in this moment. So I think, certainly for me, it took the embodiment of yoga to really feel that, because otherwise I could intellectualize it and I could kind of go, yeah, I can kind of feel that in my head, but nothing would have really changed. So for me, it took actually doing postures in a way that was so nurturing and so supportive. I could actually really believe that, even if I went to class a bit anxious and left it, relaxed, and then got a bit anxious later that same day, but I would have those moments of just dropping in to that awareness. And that was, that to me is where it becomes radical, because you're actually making a conscious choice. And I'm not going to push myself, and I'm not going to, do what I think I should do, or, everything that's being advertised to me. I'm actually going to listen to my body, and I'm going to try and respond to my body as best as I can. And that's incredibly empowering and incredibly liberating. So, I think it does become quite radical.
Definitely. And so your book was born out of that concept. I really relate to that. I mean, I am a busy person, but I've had to learn to get the fulfillment out of the busyness, but also, to keep my nervous system really, really in check. And luckily, practices of yoga nidra and restorative yoga enable me to kind of have the balance, that I can do. Because I am generally a doer, and I'm in service, and there's a lot to do, but also just kind of keep that connection, like that inner connection that you're talking about, that, I actually only found in later life. There's stages of your life and there's stages of your yoga practice. In my 20s, I was very happy to do very full-on strong yoga practices, and even in the cycles of a woman's life, in a monthly cycle, there are times when you're more active and there's times when you're more restful. But just being able to tune into that, I think remembering yourself and coming home and tapping into that, so important. So your book, Rest is Radical, is it like a storybook, or how would you describe your book?
It's kind of like a practical handbook, really. So there's some aspects of my personal story. There's some stories that I've shared with permission from students that I've worked with. And there's also a little bit of science and research thrown in there as well. So I delve just a little bit into the history of restorative yoga and yoga nidra. Not a huge amount, because the history of yoga is a big topic. So I just kind of delve into that a little bit. And then I really explore some practical techniques. So I share different restorative yoga postures, which I think are suitable when you're struggling with things like stress, anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, addiction, and menstrual health imbalance. And I also share links to yoga nidra recordings that people then can access through my website. So so the idea is that it becomes something that's very practical and something very accessible. So it's not really, you don't have to know anything about yoga. You don't have to have done yoga before. You can be a total beginner. You can be a busy person. you know, one thing I want to be clear about is that resting isn't about not doing anything. You know, most of us, we have to work, you know.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise it becomes quite elitist. It's like, oh, well, you should just take all this time off, and you might be thinking, well, I've got young children, or I've got a job, I've got to pay my bills, you know, I can't. So it's not about not doing anything, but it's about your intention behind it. You know, it's about not forcing and not pushing and not overdoing, you know, which is, I think so many of us just fall into overdoing all of the time, you know. So again, it's about coming back to the present and coming back to the moment. So if you've only got 10 minutes, you can do restorative yoga. You know, if you've got 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you can do some yoga nidra. If you've got an hour, you can do those things as well. But you don't have to have all that time. You don't have to have special expensive clothes. You don't have to have, you know, special expensive equipment. You just need to give yourself a little bit of time. Yeah. And that's really what the book is trying to help people to do. It's like, this is a really practical, effective way of resting.
Lovely. It's funny you were saying about that, you know, this elitist thing, because the other day I was kind of thinking about how guilty the wellness industry makes me feel about being busy and active, you know, and everyone's like, oh, Steph does so much, you know, you really should rest, la 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 la. And it's like, I was trying to work out, so I had a few weeks off at Easter, and I had all this time, and it was amazing. So I was able to eat really well and go for walks in nature all the time. And I had time to meditate, and I had time to really actively listen to my children. And I was like, if I was to do all the things that, you know, there's this kind of pressure the other way, as well as the pressure of, you know, the culture to kind of work. There's also the pressure of the wellness industry to do less and less and less. And it's like, you're saying is the difference between not doing anything and just being relaxed in your doing state. And I was like, if I was to do everything right, to eat the right foods, to meditate, you know, the right amount, to sleep the right amount, to walk in nature every day, to do all of this, I basically need to be retired.
Yeah.
Like, there's no time to work. And I have, you know, my family of 4, and, you know, one of us hasn't worked for 2 years, and, you know, it's like, how can I do this? But it's just finding that balance, like you say.
And again, it's about recognizing that yoga is a way, you know, yoga is a practice of turning inward. So we are bombarded by advertising all the time, you know, the wellness industry, and I will say the yoga industry, which actually didn't really exist when I first became a yoga teacher. I think I was probably just at that turning point before, you know, you suddenly could buy all this stuff that, you know, was related to yoga. You know, that's just as guilty as big billboards, you know, advertising junk food, you know, in my opinion, because the messages are constantly coming from outside of us. So again, with my book, I'm trying not to preach to people. I'm not saying, well, everyone should have 8 hours of sleep and everyone should do yoga every day, and you should, because it's just, to me, that's got nothing to do with yoga. Who am I to tell people how to live their lives? But what I can do is just suggest, you know, if you can make a little bit of time, this is something that might help you relax. Like a walk in nature can also help you relax, but the intention is coming from within, you know. So it's about, again, it comes back to making those conscious choices based on, you know, how much time you do have, which might just be that 5 or 10 minutes. But I'm sure most of us waste 5 or 10 minutes, you know, scrolling through emails.
Yeah.
So just simply lie down with our feet up and an eye pillow on, you know, which would basically be restorative yoga, lying on your couch for 5 minutes with no distraction and covering your eyes will make you feel very different than a scroll through your phone. So it's about, you know, coming in and just going, you know, what is realistic for me to be able to do, and recognizing, you know, that it's like separating the yoga from the industry in a way.
Totally.
I think that's, you know, that's a challenge for all of us yoga teachers, you know, very much included in that.
And I think it's about efficiency as well, isn't it? Efficiency of your time. So it's about, like you say, a 10 minutes spent doing this is going to give you back much more. And it's, you know, it's like that kind of, time efficiency, time management, mental management, you know, just getting the best out of life so that you have more energy to do the things you want to do, and, you know, kind of making it sacred. Your energy is sacred. It's like having some boundaries as well, and just self-worth as well, just knowing that you deserve to take that time to rest. I think it's really important. So I have a question for you. Is restorative yoga inherently accessible?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. So, you know, like all sorts of yoga, or like anything that you're doing with your body, there's always, you know, certain postures that perhaps wouldn't be suitable. So, for example, if someone was menstruating, or they were, you know, kind of 12 to 16 weeks pregnant plus, there's certain yoga postures that you don't do, and that applies in restorative yoga as well. But generally speaking, apart from some exceptions like that, generally speaking, most of the postures are accessible for anyone at any time, at any age, you know, of any flexibility. You don't remember that this isn't about stretching, so this is about softening. So you don't really have to be flexible to do these postures. You just need a lot of support. So, you know, the last year or so I've been teaching yoga online, like we all have, and I know people don't have, you know, a room full of bolsters and blankets and blocks and things. But you just improvise with pillows and cushions and books and, you know, just whatever you've got to hand. So by using all of these different resources to support your body, that's how we send the body into that state of relaxation. So certainly it's, you know, it can be made accessible for anyone in any way. So even if there's like, you know, if you are menstruating, there might be you know, you don't want to be putting your legs in the air so that your uterus is inverted, then there's like so many other postures that you can choose from, which would actually be more beneficial anyway.
And so, obviously, yeah, lots of people with a lot of bodily problems, maybe, you know, disabilities or, different bodies can actually do it. I remember that was a big thing about your classes at Bristol City Yoga that I came to, that it was very apparent that there were people with special needs, not, you know,
yeah,
to call in a general term, that you attended to very easily. You know, you were very, very focused on, you know, enabling them, and they just needed, you know, a few more cushions here and there, and how it was, you know, a way that people could practice yoga when they might not be able to practice, you know, normal yoga or whatever normal yoga is.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and I think I do, you know, I do often on, you know, in my classes, but also one-to-ones and retreats that I run. You know, I do have people come up and they've got, you know, chronic illness of some sort, like chronic fatigue is something that I've worked with a lot with people over the years, women mostly actually. You know, I've had people come to classes before with a broken leg even, which I wasn't expecting. But, you know, this is what, you know, that's what I think, you know, how yoga should be taught to people. It's not about, you know, judging people as they walk in the door and saying, I'm sorry, this class isn't suitable for you. It's about adapting the yoga to the person. And you know, that for me as a teacher, that's what makes it really rewarding, you know, and it takes away kind of the roboticness of it, because it's really about, you know, even in a class situation, you kind of have those moments of working one-on-one with people, which certainly is easier. You know, we'll say that is easier in obviously a much slower paced class where you're only doing maybe, you know, 4 postures in an hour. Of course, it's much easier to devote that attention to individuals. You know, something like Vinyasa Flow, obviously it's completely different practice, and it's got a completely different style with its own benefits. But yeah, with restorative yoga, you know, almost anyone can walk through the door and I can teach them it, you know, which, yeah, I just think there's something really beautiful about that.
Yeah, and I think that's why it was so important to me to have it as part of my 200-hour training. Oh, sorry, I'm just dropping my phone here. As part of the 200, because I do focus the whole training on accessibility and adaptability and trying to get more inclusive with, you know, how yoga is perceived and how, you know, even teaching things other than asana. There's pranayama, there's, you know, meditation, there's leading people through nidra. So the 200-hour program is trying to give people, you know, it's like a diving board, I'd say. And I really felt the restorative yoga was a very important part of the puzzle, you know, to kind of like just give people very different perceptions of what yoga can do and how you can make it more accessible. So that's, yeah, I'm glad that you answered that with a yes, it is inherently accessible. So who did you learn your restorative yoga from?
So I learned my restorative yoga was quite a few years ago now, and it was with a teacher called Anna Ashby, who teaches in London. And I do remember actually before going to do the training, I was just about to get on the bus from Bristol to London, and I was actually, ironically, I was so exhausted that I nearly didn't go, because I thought, oh, you know, going into central London, and it's, you know, going to be so busy and hectic. But I did go. And I'm really glad that I did do that, because you know, she was a fantastic teacher. You know, she's got Iyengar background. So restorative yoga actually, interestingly, does have an Iyengar background, you know, which is why we use so much props. And alignment generally is, you know, it's not as much emphasis on alignment as there is in Iyengar, but certainly there is, you know, quite that focus on getting the body in the kind of most comfortable posture as you can. So yeah, there's that little bit of background to it. So I can't even remember what year that was, maybe 2015, something like that. And yeah, it was just, you know, it was just such a transformative experience for me going to do that.
Amazing. And you're actually leading yoga nidra trainings as well, aren't you now? Is that for yoga teachers, or is it for yoga practitioners?
It's for yoga teachers primarily, but it can also be opened up to anyone that wants to use yoga nidra in that kind of more therapeutic setting. So, for example, you know, if a therapist wanted to work in a more embodied way with someone, then they could join the training. There are aspects of yoga philosophy in it, though, because that's something that's quite dear to my heart. So, I think it can be helpful just to be aware, at least, that yoga is a philosophy and not just a physical practice. But certainly, you know, no one needs to be a historian to come along to that training. So I ran that for the first time last year, luckily kind of in between the lockdowns. And then I won't be running it this year, but I'll be running that again next year. And a purely restorative training next year, which again, the same thing. Across 4 days, primarily aimed at people that are already yoga teachers, but you know, also, you know, willing to open it up to other people. If
well, you might have some people from the 200. You might have some people flowing in from the 200 hour. Then that would be really good. I have a question here from Florence, my friend Florence. Hi, Florence. She said, "So, how often should one practice restorative yoga?"
That's such a good question, Florence, and it's one that I've been asked before, and I'm always a little bit split in how to answer that question, because what I want to say is that you should practice it when you feel that you need to practice it, you know, because it comes back to this idea of trying to listen to your body. You know, I'm not here to say everyone should do only restorative yoga. You know, I think all the types of yoga practice are fantastic. But certainly, because I know that's a bit annoying when someone just gives you a vague answer. And you're like, well, I don't know if I feel like it or not. A couple of kind of really good ways to know if restorative yoga is a good practice to take is it when you're feeling really tired. So for anyone with a menstrual cycle, that can often be in that premenstrual phase, as well as the menstruation itself. Restorative yoga is fantastic. You know, I really recommend restorative yoga to support healthy menstruation. And I've got a chapter about that on that topic alone in my book. It's a really useful practice before you go to bed, particularly if you've had kind of a stressed day. If you're a bit tired but wired, you know, you don't have the energy to do very much with your body, but your mind is kind of whirling away, then restorative yoga is really calming and really relaxing. So really good way to prepare you for sleep. And if anyone is struggling with, say, things like chronic fatigue, then I recommend that you know, again, you just do it when you can, and you can do it at any time of day. So, you know, I've had times in my life when I've been really exhausted and I haven't even really been able to get on my mat, but I've just done the yoga in bed. You know, I've just pulled pillows around and just done yoga in bed before getting up on my really tired days. So you can do it every day. It can be your daily yoga practice. There's a wonderful book by Judith Hanson Lasseter, who's, I suppose she's acknowledged with developing restorative yoga as a technique. And she talks about in her book when she was experiencing grief, you know, restorative yoga became her main practice for a whole year. And she really credits restorative yoga with helping her deal with that grief she was experiencing. So, you know, it does depend a little bit on your life stage, what's going on in your life, how your general health is. But certainly it can be a daily practice. Certainly it can be your weekly practice. It's very much up to you. But as always with yoga, the thing is to practice regularly. So I often think just a little bit, you know, every day or every few days, even if it's just 10 minutes of resting, if you can build 10 minutes of rest into every day, it doesn't sound like very much, but that to me is much more powerful than not resting at all and then kind of collapsing in a restorative yoga class for 3 hours. You know, so I think that answers your question, Florence.
And I think as well, if you want to do an experiment on these certain types of things, I always think, you know, use your body as an experiment. I think, you know, like with any meditation practice, or if you want to see if you're intolerant to, you know, a certain drink, you practice that for a period of time. And then, you know, so I found it incredible practicing only restorative yoga for a period of time, because the results were like building up. So after a month, I knew then, you know, the actual effect of restorative yoga. And you could do it as a practice or experiment. Florence, whenever you're feeling unwell, then you could kind of think, right, this is my kind of therapy for that. I think I like to do experiments like that, but not also mixing it in. But if you want to really feel how it affects, you know, on a more long term, then little and often for a period of time, I always feel like you get more of an idea of what it's doing, because otherwise it could have been that, it could have been something else, or it could have been because, you know, all the different things that you might be doing, kind of, you wouldn't be able to tell if it's working.
And it changes mindset, you know, so that's what you notice, you know, because you're constantly moving out of fight or flight when you do restorative yoga. So you're coming out of that high stress mode, coming into relaxation. So if you make time to do that every day, particularly if you are living through a stressful time, and we're all living through very stressful times, you know, so if you can make that time every day just to kind of bring everything down, then what you start to notice is that the way that you don't want to keep rushing around anymore, and you start to recognize, I think this thing is actually making me a bit stressed. I might choose not to do that. I think I actually need more sleep. I might go to bed a bit earlier tonight. You know, it starts to infiltrate in very subtle ways into your lifestyle, which is often what, you know, yoga teachers talk about when we talk about yoga off the mat. You know, it's about what you do on your mat can really infiltrate the rest of your life, which is why if you're living a life full of straining and striving and kind of always trying to be further ahead than you are, then actually sometimes the way that yoga can help you is to do the opposite, so that you're not bringing those qualities onto your yoga mat, but you're actually going, I'm on my yoga mat, I might practice just slowing down, watching my mind, watching my breath, just coming into greater state of acceptance. And then we kind of can readdress any imbalances in our life.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Florence says thank you, and she says it makes sense, so that's great.
Great.
So I'm gonna let you go now, but before you go, can you tell us where to find you, what your website is, tell us the name of the book again, how we buy the book, and and say all that, and then I'll say thank you.
This is the book. So this is what it looks like, and you can, if you go to my website, which is just simply melskinneryoga.com, you'll see a tab that says Rest is Radical. You can just click on that, and then it will tell you a bit more about the book, and it will send you directly to my publishers where you can buy it from them. And you can also buy it on Amazon, and so you might be able to buy it in other places as well, but I know that you can definitely get it directly from the publishers as well as Amazon. So you can get it as an ebook, and you can get it kind of as a real book as well. And then you'll get access to all of those, you know, the free Yoga Nidra recordings that I mentioned once you've bought the book. And then I'm still teaching online, so you can join me for live restorative yoga on Monday evenings at 6 o'clock. I also have some on-demand videos, so if Monday 6 o'clock doesn't work for you, you can just buy some pre-recorded videos from me that you can practice in your own time, and that includes bite-sized 20-minute yoga practices as well. So for people that don't feel kind of quite ready or confident to, you know, go straight into 75 minutes, and I've got these short 20-minute practices as well. So again, all of that's just on the website.
So melskinneryoga.com.
Yes, that's right.
Well, thank you so much, Mel. And as always, I can't wait for your restorative workshop on the 200 hour. Yeah. So that starts in October. So I think I can't remember when your slot is. January or February? March.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. it always is a big turning point in during that process of the 200 hours. I think, you know, March is kind of near the end. They've had a lot of information, and I think it definitely has proved to kind of let some pennies drop that session with you. So I'm always, you know, eternally grateful. Jackie says thank you. Florence says thank you. I say thank you. And
Jackie and Florence.
Thanks so much. I'm going to end this now. I always forget how to do that, but I'll see you around, Mel.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Bye.
Bye.